I've been doing videos on the beginning of the 7-3 grid in Abrahamic material and how it starts in the beginning of all stories. And I hit upon something the other day in a video that I did showing how a 7-3 is developed in the Gospel of Thomas, where there's a 7 there, and then lion is repeated 3 times in that verse. So there's a 7 and a 3. And then if you look through the rest of the Gospel of Thomas, lion appears nowhere else. So they're using a technique where on verse 7, they're repeating something 3 times. Often in Abrahamic material, they're also in verse 3 putting something in there that is repeated 7 times. We're giving the nod to the 7-3. I just found that same technique in the book of Jonah. And let's pull it up real quick and look at it. This is the one that replicates the one that we would see in the Gospel of Thomas, and I'll pull that one up there. Here, let me go to the beginning, or just make sure we've got, we're looking at it in the beginning here. Yeah, this is Jonah, King James Version. We get down here into verse number 7. And what we find is that within the document is repeated 3 times. However, if we look, we're going to see lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. All 3 of them are right there. You can see the repeats. If you read it, you'll go, okay, I'm mentally privy to looking for that now. So I'm going to be checking for that. Then I come over here and take a look, and sure enough, if I leave the S off, I just put lot. Lot is repeated the 3 times right there in verse number 7. So this is just like a super simple technique to combine that 7 and 3. This is the beginning of the document, and the 7 and 3 is up front. The same way we have 7 said 3 times in Genesis. We've got a repeating pattern going on. What did we see in the Gospel of Thomas? All right, here it is, the Gospel of Thomas. I've downloaded it's the Thomas O. Lambden translation. But let's take a look. We'll get down here to verse number 7, and what do we see? It's a short verse. Blessed is the lion, which becomes man when consumed by man, and cursed is the man when the lion consumes, and the lion becomes man. We've got lion, and lion 3 times right here. And if we come over to check the entire Gospel of Thomas, bingo, that's the only 3 places it shows up. And we've got a consumed over here 3 times too. We're really seeing a replication of a pattern, of a technique, of an encoding technique in the story. If you look at it and pay attention to it, you go, okay. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. All right, what I've done here is I've combined the 2 verses together from the Gospel of Thomas and from Jonah. Gospel of Thomas on top, Jonah on the bottom. Look at the similarities. Both of them are verse 7. Both of them feature a word repeated 3 times. Lion in the Gospel of Thomas, lot in Jonah. They both also feature a word that is repeated 3 times within the rest of the book, the story. Jonah's obviously very short. Well, they're both fairly short. But throughout the entire book, there's something that's only repeated 3 times. So there's 2 techniques right there, it appears to me, that remain consistent as far as putting 7s and 3s together. And these 2 right here are just very similar. I'm very convinced, however, Gnostic material is copied from Greek and Jewish and Christian material. The Gnostics didn't start this. They're creating their own, following everybody else. They're copying. They're following patterns elsewhere that's pre-established. In fact, verse 102, woe to the Pharisees, for they're like a dog sleeping in the manger of oxen, for neither does he eat nor does he let the others eat, or words to that effect, are 500 years later of an Aesop's fable, The Dog in the Manger. You can go look that up. Yeah, Gnostics, I see what you're doing. Okay, this is not going to look like the same thing, but it is nevertheless showing the 7-3 grid. They're not always doing it the same way. They're always showing it, but they've got different ways of doing it, so the code is mixed up. In this case, what are we going to do here? Let's go down to verse number 3. And what we see is voice within the entire Gospel of Mark. 7 times. So right there we see a 3-7. We got our nod to the 3-7 grid from Genesis. We'll look at that just before I end the video. We get down here to 7, and we see if we knew this well enough, if we go through or if we search and use the computer. See, verse 7, there cometh one. Let's take a look at that. There cometh one. 3 times right there. So we've got in verse 3, something is repeated 7 times. In verse 7, something is repeated 3 times. This is going to be consistent. It comes from Genesis, starting at right here at the end of the second creation story. It actually starts in chapter 2. Langton chaptered and versed it in a way to put these together. The 7 and the 3 right there. Verse 3, we've got seventh day right there. We got 7 repeated 3 times right here and that 3. This begins a 7-3 grid, but what this does is it starts out parallel to a time in our life where we are naked and unashamed in the garden, where we are little children, pure, and have not yet begun to experience life, not ashamed. We are not covered. We are not hiding anything. We are just babies, children, ready to go. Okay, before moving on real quick, let's go look at Susanna. This is an apocryphal work that is, it's a part of whoever is writing this and containing or maintaining the pattern, because that 7-3 is the beginning of human life. It's a pure state. The stories start with 7-3s. They're following a particular pattern for a reason. If we get into Susanna, we looked at that the other day. In verse 3, daughter is repeated 7 times, so note was made of that, so the nod is there. But when we get into 7, what we find, I've identified more, but what we're looking for is went and husband and walk. Those are 3 different words that were repeated 3 times within the book of Susanna. And Susanna is only 1 chapter, 64 verses. It's very short. So all of these are compacted into this very short piece. There's going to be a lot of repeats, but they're spread out so you wouldn't know it. Anyway, yeah. So there's different techniques, but you can always see that they're maintaining that 7-3 connection in the beginnings. All right, if I were to look at that, I can see that there's a variety of techniques. Now that I see that, there's a couple of things going on. Repeating words actually is one way. The other way is repeating words within itself 3 times. I don't know that you'd find one on verse 3 with 7 repeats in it. There might be something like that in there somewhere. The Bible's a big book. I'm not going to go try to chase that down right now. But it almost looks to me like that one technique where it's right on verse 7 and I'm going to repeat something 3 times, lot or lion. That one is like the simplest, most rudimentary technique of putting a 7 and a 3 together, because it's right there. It's visible. You don't have to know the entire document. However, you do have to know at some point. You have to understand. You might have to look later and go, okay, does that lot or does the lion? I have to go to read the entire thing now to make sure that's the only place it is. So we really are at a deficit mentally accessing this material. You can see that. They had it memorized. We do not. There's something purposeful in there that we just don't have access to because of memorization. And that's the only reason. We have the intelligence. And sometimes we think, oh, I already know what the hell it says. I don't need to go look for anything else. I know what it says. So that person's not going to find this puzzle either. But I wanted to show that right there. If you see anywhere, go ahead and put comments below if you spot those anywhere. Yeah, let me know. There's a code. There's a puzzle, and it's right in our hands. We just don't know how to read it. We're looking at it all the time. We just don't know how to look at it. We're not questioning the goofy stuff. We need to. The goofy stuff is, hello, figure this out. It's a puzzle. You know what? I just pulled up Ezekiel here. I was like, you know what? I can't let this go. So before I end, let's do this. If you take a look at number 7 down here, what do we have? What I see is that feet is said 3 times. However, there's also foot. So it's either talking about all of them or just, like a calf's foot. Their feet were straight feet in the sole of their feet. All of those are refer to their feet. Their feet, their feet, their feet. And the sole were like a sole of a calf's foot. So that's something different, and it's foot. So it looks like feet is said 3 times here. However, you'll notice I've got a 17 there. So even though feet is repeated 3 times on this line, it's repeated 17 times total in the entire book of Ezekiel. However, 17 is a good number. It's a 10 and a 7 combined. It's the day that the ark rested. It is the amount of times Sarai's name is repeated. 17 is a good thing. So this might be another technique then, where I'm going to repeat feet 3 times it is going to appear elsewhere. However, when it does appear elsewhere, it's still going to have to fit this number criteria. And the 7 identified, remembering this is on verse 7. It's purposefully on verse 7. So this might be even a deeper way of doing it still, the most complex one. Okay, that's it for this video. I just want to show that 7, and then when you see something repeated 3 times right there, there's a good bet that that's the only place it shows up in the entire whatever book that is, or gospel, or whatever writing, as long as it's genuine Abrahamic school of wherever. Although I'd have to say it exists elsewhere as well. All right, hope that was fun and interesting. See you in the next video.